Rin and Taichi are fighting with a team on a field. They remember that they were both students a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, they were in Japan going to school. They stop to talk on their way, and a leaf passes beside them, calling Taichi's name. He looks behind and sees a bicycle coming, and he drags Rin closer. Meanwhile, another caster in another world is trying to summon a person. An assassin arrives and drops blood on her magic circle, forcing it to activate forcefully. The spell circles Taichi, but Rin jumps inside to save him, and they both disappear into a new reality. He goes to find his best friend, and he tells her that although he can't entirely be sure about where he is, it looks like something he has seen in games. She tries to call her home line, and she sees there is no network coverage, and she advises that they should go to the nearest village and find a house with a home line. He tells her he doubts there are many home lines here, and in fact, it looks like in this world there are no phones at all. They start walking into the village until they find a fearful animal. It looks like a horse, although it has horns and spits fire. They decide to run, but the monster runs after them terribly. Taichi figures they can't run enough, so he tells Rin to lie down. The monster jumps over them and waits in front of them. He tells Rin that he will distract the monster, and she should run away during the distraction, but she is scared that he may die. He tells her that's entirely his intention. He intends to die so they won't die together. She refuses to leave, so he runs to the monster to distract him regardless. The monster cares less about him, and even when he throws a stone at it, his stone can't inflict any injury on the monster. Just as the monster spits fire at him, a random man who is an adventurer, Barada, attacks the monster. Despite Barada's hit, the horse stands up immediately. Another adventurer, Raquelta, comes right from a hidden part of the forest with an arrow and shoots the monster. It dies immediately, and Raquelta comes out, calling the monster an obsidian horse, and says they can't be killed by anything less than a mithril arrow. Taichi asks them what an obsidian horse is. Raquelta explains that they are like normal horses but with obsidian as their horn. They are strong, and they spit fire, eat animals, and kill people, although they are very expensive and their body parts sell well in the market. Another member of the adventurer group, Magila, uses her fire lance to smoke the horse, and they take the horn. They warn Rin and Taichi that the forest has become very risky, as many people have been missing, and several things have been happening, so they should follow them. They eat the smoke horses together, and as they eat, Raquelta asks them where they are from. He says since they don't know obsidian horses, they can't be from that world, and their clothes are also neatly sewn better than the ones people wear in that world. Taichi doesn't want to talk. Barada notices he is uncomfortable about having that conversation, so he tells them they can avoid it. They mention their city, Aspire, and as they are adventurers, so Taichi asks them to take them to Aspire. They offer to take them because they don't want to leave them in the village like that. After that conversation, Taichi goes to meet Rin. He had noticed that Rin had been silent throughout the day, and she only does that whenever she is angry with him. He tries to ask her what is wrong, but she insists she's okay. Since he knows so much about her, he convinces her to confide in him, which she reluctantly does, and she warns him against risking his life again. He promises her that anything they go through, they will go through it together. He brings out his hands, and she reconciles with him. The following day, the adventurers take them to the Aspire city. They enter the marketplace, and what they see is not as refined as the Wenifix royal capital, but it's an excellent place for the Elistane magic kingdom. They ask them if they want to become an adventurer, telling them that it's very risky to become an adventurer, but the friends have made up their minds. They have to work for money if they want to survive in their new world. They describe the adventurer guild for them, asking them to register at the guild. They tell them where they usually are and give them money to take care of themselves till they meet again. The friends enter the guild and they meet the attendant. They ask to become adventurers, and the attendant gives them an adventure book to read. They see the letters and are shocked that they can read them. They figure they have also been able to communicate well with other people, and they wonder why. The attendant tells them she has to check their magic strength because in that world, having magic is necessary to be an adventurer, so she brings out a crystal ball and asks them to touch it. Rin touches it first, and the ball is white, then later shows some sparkles. When Tai Chi touches the ball, it breaks. The attendant is shocked. She says she can't accept them because their powers are out of that world, and she goes to call the guild master. As the guild master walks toward them, everyone is shocked that a person with high prestige is showing his face to the world. The guild master, Gerard, comes with his golden fencer, Muller. He tells them he can't accept them at his guild, and they beg him. He says their powers can't be quantified, and Muller will have to take them to a place to quantify their power before they can be adventurers. They do not want to follow her since they don't know where they are, but Muller begs them to trust her. She takes them to a woman who opens the door naked. Rin closes Tai Chi's eyes so he won't see her. And when the woman, Lamia, dresses, they all sit to talk. Muller explains to her that the crystal at the guild couldn't quantify their powers, and she wants her to test them. After her testing, she sees the numbers and tells them they can be adventurers, and they work under her. They scream at her. The leaf is also seen flying outside Lamia's house. At the summoning ground, he asks them the feedback about the summoning, and they tell him since the caster is powerful, the summoning worked, but worked wrongly. So they have been looking for new people from another world. They have sent notices around the village. After the reporter leaves, he looks at the broken leaf in his hand. Lamia tells Tai Chi that he has 120,000 magic capacities and 40,000 magic strengths. When Rin asks for her, she tells her she has 37,000 magical capacities and 5,000 magic strengths. They ask them if it's enough to become adventurers, and Muller tells them it's more than enough that an average human has 10,000 magic capacities. They have capacities more than normal humans. She says that when Lamia, the strongest mage in the city, has, as she is about to mention Lamia's points, she feels Lamia may get angry, so she keeps her mouth shut. Lamia responds by telling them she has 43,000 magic capacity and 6,000 magic strength, while Muller has 35,000 magic capacity and 3,800 magic strength, so they can now see they are too powerful. And despite all their powers, they are raw. They can't control their abilities, and they don't know what they have, which necessitates their lessons with her, and she has to teach them how to control such powers. Tai Chi asks her what he can use the capabilities for. She tells him that he could destroy a whole city with his powers or destroy anyone. He could become a king and own a kingdom where he will get all the money he wants and even babes. She goes nearer to him, putting her breast on his face, and Rin goes to cover his face. She laughs with Muller and is sure she will have fun teaching them. She takes them to eat, and she explains they have to teach them how to use magic powers. She says that mages use magic powers by lending their powers to spirits and using the spirits. Rin gets what she means immediately and asks her if they can lend powers to any spirit. But she explains that the spirit choose their companion, and it's the spirit who picks them. She tells them there are 4 spirits: fire, water, wind, and earth. And the magicians with one of the elements are simple mages, while some have 2, like Muller, who can use fire and earth, and she is a triple magician with the powers of fire, wind, and water. She tells Rin that she is a quad magician and can use the 4 elements. Tai Chi asks about his powers, and she informs him that he can't use any of them, and they have found out he is a sorcerer. She explains that for mages, the spirits borrow their powers, while sorcerers, they control the spirits themselves. While mages must say incantations before calling such powers, sorcerers do not need it. She proceeds to train them on how to use their powers. She trains Tai Chi while Muller trains Rin. During her training with Tai Chi, she begs him to materialize his powers, telling him that without materialization, he can't use it. When he fails, she tells him she won't allow him to eat unless he does it. He hears the same voice that called him on the roadside, and the voice wishes him good luck. With Rin, Muller tells her she has to think about the element she wants to use and picture it in her mind, as also the uses. She thinks of fire and its chemicals and calls out fire. She tells Muller that she wants to experiment with another thing. She says these fires can only burn oil. So she wants to think of gas. When thinks of gas and calls a blue fire, which shocks Muller as she has never heard about it before. Rin runs to meet Tai Chi happily. She convinces Tai Chi to try materialization, and Tai Chi forces it. He hears the voice again telling him his power is in his heart, and he materializes it. They all have their dinner, and that night, as they sleep, Muller talks with Lamia. She asks her what she thinks about the kids saying they are unique. Lamia says she knows. She says that she didn't know the issue of the capital would get to their fort, and says they must train the kids within 3 weeks so that they will be strong enough to protect themselves because anyone who knows about their existence will come for them. Later, Taichi goes to fight Fenwolf, and he kills them while Rin fights horned hares. Their teachers look at them from afar, saying that there is only one monster left for them, which is the obsidian horse. As they talk, an obsidian horse approaches the friends, and they kill it. That night, Lamia tells them they have graduated, and they will be going to the guild. She tells them she has one more lesson for them, and she tells them she knows they aren't from that world, which is why she asked them to train with her. She says something like that happens, and it's either some strange portal opening or a caster summons them. But she is sure it's a caster, and it's a strong caster, so they have to find the caster and ask her why she had summoned them. They promise to do so. Meanwhile, the caster is in front of her god, praying they are protected and given power. That night, Taichi tells Rin thank you. He appreciates Rin for entering the portal when he pushed her away, saying he would have died here if he was alone. After they depart, the strange voice speaks to him again, telling him she can't wait to meet him. They eventually return to the guild, register at the guild, and meet their helpers again. They become rank E adventurers, and they take jobs that are for rank E adventurers. They have fun, and they enjoy their petty jobs. It turns out that even if they get used to the kingdom, they eventually want it. One morning, Rin wakes up early, and she starts reading about the Elistane Magic Kingdom. As she reads, Taichi comes to join her. He asks her why she's reading in that world, saying that one of his best advantage of their new world is that there is no examination. She tells him that she has to know more about the city if they want to do well, and they keep checking the map to know how goods are transported to the city. The innkeeper, Almeida, comes to meet them to serve them. She tells them she has a summon from the guild leader, and they go to meet Gerard. When they get there, they wonder why he had summoned them since they came to the guild every day. He tells them he has a job for them, and he shows them the position. He says there have been rumors that a bar in the slum had been stealing merchant products during traveling, and it has affected the price of goods. So they are to visit the bar in disguise and ask the barman some questions. They tell them it's a rank D quest. They see mismark on the paper and ask about it. They confirm that 2 rank D adventurers had gone for the quest and failed. So if they fail, the price will be given to rank C adventurers, and the price will be increased. So to save money, they decided to give it to someone that would achieve the task. He says their teacher had given good words about them, and he is sure they will win. He promises to promote them to rank D if they win. They leave for the task, and on their way, Rin sees her favorite fruit, Melilla, and she wishes to buy it. When they go nearer the price, they find out the price has doubled. They complain, and the seller laments that they have been unable to get goods because merchants are being attacked on the way. They pity him and buy it. They eventually get to the bar, and they ask for the ales, but the men at the bar mock them, saying that they are kids and soft drinks are sold at their bar. They ask for water and try to talk to the attendant about the shortage of goods. The attendant says he knows nothing about it, and the men in their bar attack them. They fight back, and the men confess that when they get to the forest, the goods are just there, and they are only hired by someone they don't know. The friends leave the bar deciding that the men aren't fit to defeat rank D adventurers, and they aren't the target. However, they notice some people tailing them. They trap them, and a fight starts. They hit 2 of the assassins, but one of them brings out a smoke ball and disappears with the leader before the smoke clears. The last one, who is weak on the ground, is taken to the guild. When she wakes, Gerard tells her that her people won't come for her, and an assassin who is arrested can only kill herself. However, the person who brought her has offered her life, so she should decide if she wants to take the offer. At the inn, Rin and Taichi think about the scarcity of goods, and Maeri visits them. She tells them she has a solution for the shortage of Melilla, and she has a mission to safeguard the Melilla plantation, as a mission has come to the guild about a person destroying and stealing Melilla. She asks them if they want to form a group with her. She is shocked about making such requests, as she has been without a partner since she became an adventurer. They accept to join her, and they visit the plantation. As they walk around with the owners, Rin's wind feels that some people are coming. She tells the others that the things coming aren't humans, but monsters. Some orcs and ogre arrive, and Tai Chi asks Rin to protect the farmers while he fights them with Muller. He decides to take on the ogre, and they win. Muller tells them ogre shouldn't be found around that site, and the only way to find out the person doing such is to set a trap. They agree with her. They suspect that Kasim, one of the farmers who is also the one who brought the mission to the guild, is the perpetrator. That night, someone comes to the farm to absorb the strength of the dead monsters, hoping to use it to feed new monsters, and she retires to hide in the tree. The assassin caught thinks about why Tai Chi didn't kill her. Since she notices he was more powerful, she wonders why she's still alive. And at about the same time, Gerard asks her if she has made her decision. She tells him she has decided. The party returns to the plantation with the farmers. Rin notices the thieves, and they find them. After defeating the thieves complain that there is a sorcerer following them that didn't come that day. The other farmers take the thieves away, leaving the party members with Kasim. He shakes Tai Chi's hands, and Tai Chi notices his hands are soft and not like the farmer's own. Muller says he also knows something about orcs and ogre, and only adventurers have such knowledge. So they ask him who he is. He laughs at them, telling them he lured them there, and he was the one who paid the thieves and also hired them. The sorcerer who had to hide in the tree, Grammy, also shows herself. She tells Kasim that she will fight the girls and Kasim should go with Tai Chi. With Tai Chi, Kasim calls out his elemental, which he calls forest elemental. Tai Chi attempts to hit it, but finds out it has no physical element, and he can't be defeated with physical touch or a sword. Kasim laughs at him, asking him to kill the elemental. Meanwhile, Muller approaches Grammy first, but she gets worn out from the battle. Rin tries to cover up for her, but she also fails, and within a few minutes they both collapse. Tai Chi struggles to hold on to the elemental until Kasim brings out the red power. He feeds the frost elemental and names it Red Elemental, commanding it to kill Tai Chi. He tells Tai Chi that he knows he is big and he wants his power. He says he had kept them in a difficult position because he knows that's the best way to make him his prey. And he will also capture the girls and use them to threaten him. He asks Kasim what Kasim will do, and Kasim says he will give the girls for prostitution if he doesn't obey him. He brings back his A game, hoping to defeat the Red Elemental. On the other hand, the girls stand up and tell Grammy that they will fight her another way. They unite their powers, blocking her escape route and defeating her. While she stays on the ground, Kasim arrives, and he shows the girls their friend, Tai Chi, who is under the leg of his Red Elemental. Looking at them, Tai Chi decides he won't lose. He wonders if he has the power to defeat the world, and he screams for control. The voice that speaks to him takes him to another world. The voice asks him if he wants her to lend him powers. She says it will be a one-time thing, and it will be painful for her because she is breaking the rules. She tells him she is a wind spirit named Ariel. He collects her powers and returns. The Red Elemental hits him, but he feels no pain. He swallows the elemental with his wind, and Kasim gets scared. He runs away with Grammy, and Ariel collects her power. On their way, Kasim tells Grammy that he has gotten what he wants to know, and he now knows Tai Chi isn't at their level and is not human. Tai Chi's friends also take him away to treat his wounds. He eventually wakes up at Lamia's house. She knocks on the door, and he asks her what he is doing there. His stomach sings of hunger, so she asks him to eat first. After eating food that belongs to over 5 people, he eventually gets filled. She brings a chair and tells him he passed out for a week. His friends initially thought he passed out due to the wounds and injury, so they took him to a doctor. But when he didn't wake up for about 3 days, they brought him there. She tells him that he passed out because he had used all of his powers. She asks him to narrate what had happened when he talks about the red substance. She tells him it's called Crimson Pact, and it is used to increase the power of any monster to about 5 times. He tells her that at that point, when he thought he would die, he suddenly saw a wind spirit called herself Ariel, and she screams. She tells him it's a lie, and says if it's true, they now know his power as a unique magician. Meanwhile, Kasim and Grammy go to report to their master. While their master says Kasim did a great job, he says Grammy didn't do well as his prey. He empowers Grammy more before two girls come to tell him it's time for their festival. He holds an invitation and says they have to invite him. Lamia tells Taichi he is a summoner and can summon any spirit, and the difference between a summoner and a shaman is that the spirit works for the summoners. He leaves her house and returns to the guild, but finds out Rin and Muller aren't around. As he leaves, he sees two men trying to molest a girl. As he walks toward her, she comes to meet him, and he fights the men. He tells her he knows she could have defeated those men, and asks why she waited for him. So she tells him she is Anastasia, the assassin he saved, and she is now working for the guild to find the source of the food scarcity. She tells him she has traced it to a place, and when they go there together, Daichi finds the invite and sees that a horde of goblins have been given a crimson pack and are preparing to attack the city. He prepares to fight with Anastasia. Meanwhile, Rin and Muller continue their investigation. They are attacked by some assassins, and Grammy also shows at their back. She kidnaps Muller, and Rin tries to catch up with her, but the other assassins attack her. She eventually finds Grammy, who says they want to use Muller as a sacrifice by feeding her crimson, and she should save Muller. She goes there and freezes all the men. She releases Muller from the chains without activating the magic. As they reunite, Kasim and his boss arrive. The man laughs that he was the one who planned everything, and he tells them about the goblins. He says he has given Taichi another mission, so it's their mission to save the city. Kasim walks away with his boss and asks how many monsters have been prepared, and his boss tells him they have over 200 for only Taichi and 500 on the mountain for the others. He means to Kasim that he spent time planning, and his plans will surely come to pass. Taichi and Anna keep going through their halls to find the demons. They eventually find a goblin, and after he defeats it, he can't find its core. And he wonders what's happened. Suddenly, Anna calls his attention to a door. As the door opens, he sees different red signs and the two girls working for Kasim's boss. The girls welcome him to Milo and Melo's room, telling him they are earth magicians. They tell him they are the ones who created the goblins, and they will activate it with the crystal with them. While Taichi prepares to fight the goblins, the kids mistakenly activate their crystals badly, and the goblins turn on them. He saves the girls and takes them to Anna, then prepares to kill the goblins. Meanwhile, Muller and Rin go to the guild to report to the guild leader. Gerard wonders what they can do if they can negotiate, and says he knows they would have won if Taichi is with them. They convince him that they can still win, and Lamia also arrives. She tells them she will join them so they can win. They start planning, and Rin says she wants to cause an explosion by using her physics knowledge of adding rock, which is the earth, with fire and water to cause a phreatic explosion. They wonder if it's possible, but decide to give her the benefit of the doubt. She goes to the battlefield, creates a hole trapping all the monsters, then pours water and fire before throwing a huge rock. It works, but she gets weak. Lamia encourages them to continue fighting, while the perpetrator watches from afar off. They fight, and it's been the perpetrators who caused all the issues. As they continue fighting, Taichi arrives and meets Gerard. He comes with the twins and explains what's happened. He goes to join the fight, and at this point everyone is weak. Rin has also collapsed, and she wishes he is there. She thinks about how they can come together and prays he comes. As the monster is about to kill her, he arrives and kills it. He overhears all of Rin's talks about how she wishes she had told him about how much she likes him before she got to the point of death where she is present. After hitting the monster, he asks her why she didn't tell him, and she cries to him. He goes to meet Lamia and Muller, bringing along Milo and Melo. Lamia looks at him, asking him who are the children he is taking around. But Milo and Melo reply that they aren't children. He tells them they are earth mages, and they are stronger than they look. He asks them if they could all watch his back while he goes to fight the battle. He battles with the three leaders of the pack, who are all red, and Kasim and his boss keep looking. Kasim also asks his boss if all these are the intention of their Great One, and the boss replies that they are all instruments, and no one can be able to resist the command of the Great One. Taichi keeps struggling with the monsters and reports to Gerard about how he's doing. Before he leaves Gerard, he asks Anna to remain in the tent and protect the people. She keeps doing the work he asked her to do, and she thinks about the first time she met him. She says that he is the first person who has ever treated her as a woman and not a weapon. As she walks around serving people, someone comes beside her and says some incantation, forcing her to go to the battlefield, contrary to what Tai Chi has asked her. Tai Chi eventually defeats one of the three leaders, and he is weak. As he does so, the ground begins to shake. The twins say that the Earth Dragons are coming out, and it's a shock as Earth Dragons don't interfere in issues with men. The twin-headed dragon arrives. Tai Chi knows that the presence of such a dragon could kill anyone. So he asks everyone to return to the tent. Although Rin insists on staying with them, Muller warns them that they must return. As he fights the dragons, Anna comes beside him. He snaps at her, asking her why she left the tent, and she comes to reality. As they talk, the dragon attacks, and Anna blocks the attack and dies on his hands after telling him that he is the only one who treated her as human. He gets angry at the dragons. He calls Ariel, asking for her power. So she takes him to another world. She tells him she can't use her powers unless he summons her, and the last time was just an exception. He forms a pact with her and returns to the field. He tells Rin to take care of Anna and goes to meet the dragon, asking them why they had interfered in human issues. The dragon replies that they will tell him the truth if he shows his real power. They attack him, and with the help of Ariel, he defeats them. They reply that they were summoned by a person who will now become his guide, and if he wants to protect his people, he will have to become stronger. After the war, the city begins to return to normal. The sales of goods start going back to normal, and the people who had lost their lives in the attack are buried and respected. Tai Chi visits Anna's grave, and he pays his respect to her. He returns to Lamia's home, and his friends convince him to summon Ariel. He calls her, and they look at her, telling her she is so cute. Lamia comments that their Tai Chi is now so strong to summon a spirit, and Ariel taps his head to encourage him. As they talk, they see a carriage. Muller calls their attention to it, and Lamia sees the crest on it and tells them it is from the royal family. The message, Alcina Norman, the daughter of Marquise Norman, comes and greets them. She tells them she brings words from the king, Gilman, and says Gilman has heard of their good works during the war, and he wants them to visit the royal capital, Wenifix, to help him win a war between himself and his young brother, Duke Doritzheim. They enter the carriage to go to the capital, and Tai Chi sleeps through the trip. They wake him up, and Lamia asks Alcina to give them a brief of what's happening. She narrates that the court had always been held by Doritzheim's supporters. But Gilman won due to his diplomatic means. As part of his diplomatic means, he attempted to send messages to neighboring cities as peace pacts, and it caused a fight against Doritzheim, and who believed it would weaken their country's power. They arrive at the capital, and they see how dull it is. As they are about to return to the carriage, a person shoots an arrow at Alcina, but Tai Chi sees it coming and breaks it. The assassin reports to Doritzheim about Tai Chi's strength and encourages him to make a fast move. Upon arriving at the royal house, it seems no one accepts them. Gilman comes to welcome them, but Lamia speaks to him roughly. He asks the head of his army, Sumela, to send the chiefs away, and he talks privately with them. It turns out Gilman and Lamia are familiar with each other, and Lamia says that they will help him on a few conditions. Before leaving, she confronts him, that he summoned Tai Chi and Rin into the world, and he admits it. He apologizes to them regardless. They return to their rooms, and Alcina tells Rin and Tai Chi that a person wants to see them. The person turns out to be their caster, Princess Charlotte. She apologizes, saying that the summoning was interrupted, caused to how they found themselves in the middle of the forest. They ask her how she can send them back, but she says summoning can only be done once in a lifetime. But she tells them of finding a way to return them after the war. She cries and apologizes, and they forgive her. The following morning, Tai Chi finds out he is to fight Sumela. Lamia tells the others that she planned the fight so that people could accept them. Tai Chi contemplates calling Ariel for the fight, but he doesn't want to kill Sumela. He wins the battle without Ariel, and after the fight, Sumela asks him for a favor. She asks him to marry her, but he refuses. That night, he thinks about how he will have to fight humans, and he fears he will have blood on his hands. He calls Ariel out and confides in her, saying he hopes Rin will be able to return to being a student when they return to their world. He tries to talk with Rin and goes to her room. He knocks, but the door is opened. He enters the room, checks through all the doors, and mistakenly opens the door to her bathroom. He screams and apologizes. That night, Charlotte prays that the god protects Taichi and Rin. Her prayer is interrupted by Kasim's boss, Lodra, comes to pacify her and gives a wicked laugh behind her. Taichi wakes the next day and goes out to find Rin. He finds Rin where she is watering some dying flowers. And she says that the people haven't been able to take care of their flowers because of the war, and she's sure the followers will grow better after the war. He comes to tell her that Lamia is looking for her, and Lamia has asked them to attend the army meeting that day so they can know the battle plans. Meanwhile, in Dortensheim's clique, Marquise insists that they fight immediately if they don't want to lose. So, Dortensheim gives him the authority to lead a war. Sumela finds out the war is imminent, and she reports to the king that their enemies are coming with 1,000 soldiers, while they had 3,300 magicians. Lamia says she thinks the enemy soldiers are little and asks if they are sure it's not bait. But Sumela says her team has checked to be sure it's not bait. They plan the attack, and before leaving, Sumela tells Taichi she will marry him after the war. That night, Taichi goes to Rin's room after delivering his message. He attempts to leave, but she asks him to stay the night. She reminds him of how she was scared of her tennis competition, and how she figured it in the same way she was scared. Her opponent was also scared. She tells him she doesn't like the idea of killing, but he tells her he doesn't want her to attend the battle. He says that if Charlotte's magic hadn't malfunctioned, she wouldn't be in that situation. She informs him that she decided to enter the circle so that she will maintain her decision. Lamia and Muller say they want to check up on them, and an assassin comes to stab their bed, but stabs a pillow. They all come out to say they had anticipated the assassin, but the assassin escapes and kills himself. They go for the battle the following day and put a trap for their enemies, but find out they can attack from afar. Taichi sees they are using a ring, and Sumela finds out it's a magic block, which makes them exhausted in a few hours. Instead of leaving them to die, Lamia proposes electrocuting them and saving them. They execute the idea, and the soldiers get weak. One of Dortensheim's army, Inimicus, comes. He tells Marquise that he had failed, and he stabs Marquise. After the fight, Sumela takes Taichi away for celebratory drinks. After drinking and eating during their celebration, Taichi wakes up overfed. He feels heavy, and he wakes up to Rin, who tries to tell him it's morning. She takes him to eat, but he complains of a stomachache, asking for medicine. At that point, his colleagues also visit. They tell him the king is asking of them, and they both go to see the king. He tells them his daughter, Charlotte, has decided to give them gifts for their great acts, and Charlotte brings different weapons, asking them to pick their preferred ones. They accept the gifts, and Sumela forces them to train with the gifts. While Lamia activates her ring, Rin and Muller fight against each other, and Sumela confronts Taichi, who begs her that he is overfilled and needs drugs. She releases him to get drugs, and she goes to the marketplace with Ariel. He notices people looking at him and assumes it's Ariel that they're looking at, but she tells him she had covered herself and no one can see her, so he is the only one they're looking at. They all comment about his great powers, and he walks away. He sees Kasim. Kasim asks him for a duel. He wonders what happened to Kasim's hands, and the boy narrates that it's a result of their last war and he must get revenge. He tells Kasim to let them go to a private place so he won't hurt others. Kasim says he feels like a hero, but eventually accepts his proposal. Meanwhile, Muller and Rin keep fighting, and Lamia engages Sumela in a conversation. She finds out the rebel soldiers are approaching, and she only uses the fight between Muller and Rin to encourage her warriors. Kasim goes for the fight with Taichi, but says he has to use a magical item to suppress Taichi's powers before the fight. Taichi accepts. As they fight, he remembers Lamia's advice that he has to picture the magic he wants to use. He wins Kasim, but the item goes out of control and attacks him. Grammy comes out to destroy the item, but the spirits remain. He gets his power, destroys the spirit, and Kasim accepts defeat. Lodra meets his mistress, Lady Shade, and confesses as regards giving the magical item to Kasim. On Taichi's way home, he sees the sellers in a panic and finds out the rebel armies are on their way. He returns to the palace and encourages Rin to fight. The following day, the battle begins. Duke Dortisheim calls his team together, and with his assistant Inimicus, he encourages his soldiers to fight the war for him. He asks Inimicus what he will be remembered as, either the fool who waged war against his brother or the man who tried to defend his country. And Inimicus tells him he will be remembered as both. Inimicus says he has plans for the mages of falling leaves, that's Moller, Rin, Taichi, and Lamia, so he should be worried. The king also calls together his team. He encourages them that they can't allow his brother to destroy the city. The fight officially starts, and Lamia, Moller, and Rin go to the battlefield. Lamia uses her rings to destroy some of the enemies while Rin confronts a female rebel soldier, Susora, who claims she will kill her. Moller encounters a male soldier from the second team who says the ladies aren't meant to carry swords and that they are only supposed to be wives. Meanwhile, Taichi asks Ariel to carry him to Dortisheim quarters. As he arrives, he kills the soldiers outside, and he goes into the inside to approach Dortisheim and Inimicus. Inimicus asks the soldiers to attack him, but Dortisheim says they should send the other people out, and he would like to speak with Taichi. Taichi informs him that the king is ready to forgive him for all he has done, and ready to let them go scot-free if only he calls his armies back now. Inimicus refuses to let that happen, but Duke Dortisheim doesn't allow him to take charge of the conversation. Inimicus releases a rare power during the conversation, and it flows through the battlefield, entering the mouths of all the dead armies. Dortisheim asks Taichi why he is fighting under his brother when he can take charge of the whole kingdom, but he replies that leading a country is difficult. Dortisheim advises he could be a dictator, but Taichi says it's impossible to force people into following him. When the spirit returns, Ariel notices the bad spirit, and Inimicus starts laughing. He says he was never following Dortisheim. He had never seen Dortisheim as his head. He only used the bad spirit in Dortisheim to create a war so he could fulfill the wishes of his lord and mistress. Taichi remembers the words of the dragon and finds out the person controlling everything is Lady Shade. The spirit from Inimicus turns all the dead soldiers, irrespective of their team, into zombies. The zombies go ahead to attack people irrespective of their teams, and at that point, the two opposing soldiers have to reunite to achieve their survival goals. Inimicus releases some zombies on Dortisheim as he laughs that he has fulfilled his duty. The two opposing teams are now faced with a common enemy. Rin is injured, and she asks Susora if she can work for her so they can defeat the monsters together. Moller wonders what monster she sees, and Lamia explains that there was a war called the Bloody Rhapsody. That war was about 200 years ago, and was to last for just a few days, but suddenly their warriors got uncontrollable. They start fighting everyone, and after destroying the battlefield, they go to the village and even the neighboring kingdom. They figured it was a mind-controlling power, but no one could break it during that time. Dortisheim and Taichi come out to think of what to do. Dortisheim tells him the power is beyond Inimicus's control, and he doubts anyone could break it. He says he's sure his brother will command his armies to destroy the zombies, even if it's worth their lives, and he regrets that he will become a villain in the story of the kingdom he was trying to build. Taichi decides to break the magic. He attempts to reach the core, but Ariel jumps to stop him. He stands there saying she won't allow him to do such, and it causes a fight between them. He claims he is the one who caused the whole issue, but she tells him it's her fault. She says she didn't express herself in her full form because she had assumed he can't control her, so she had to change. She changes to her complete form as Sylphid, one of the four greatest spirits. After she changes, Rin comes there with Susora. He sees her injured and he hugs her. He calls Sylphid and he destroys the core of the magic. After destroying it, he hugs Rin again, but Susora tells him to destroy Inimicus before they think of making out. At that point, Inimicus has changed to his full monster point. As Taichi goes to attack him, he tells Taichi that Taichi will surely do the want for the mistress. And he's also ready to die for their mistress. He defeats Inimicus and collapses. He wakes up some days later and meets Rin and Lamia by his side. He asks about Rin's injury, and he finds out Lamia has helped her heal. Charlotte and the others also arrive. After the war, Dortesheim is executed, and they are rewarded by the king. They leave the city, and before leaving, Charlotte promises them she will find a way to take them back to their city. He decides that despite what Lady Shade wants, he will always protect his people. They all look at Sylphide, and Rin says he has learned to cheat to beat everyone. The others ask him what cheat means, and say they don't know that word in their world. He explains that it means getting something you do not deserve, and he will use this cheat to protect his friends.